Okay, so this is going to be the craziest crackpot theory of all time. That's going to be debunked in 2 days or a week at most. But what if both Invisigal and the Blonde Blazer are villains? Or at the very least, some sort of antagonists, or at least not what they seem to be. Now, let me explain. So, Dispatch is a game like the Telltale games, which are ultimately about choices. However, one of the big complaints people have is that your choices don't really change the events, just slightly tweak the timeline. Like, if you choose who to save in episode 1, the character who you saved will eventually die some other way regardless the next time there's an opportunity for it to happen. Like, most characters die anyway by the end of like a season or of the game. It's just a matter of your choice if they die now or if they die later. Sometimes your choice doesn't even matter and they die despite your choice. Even in Dispatch, there's multiple times in the story where your choice doesn't really matter because the characters will do and say whatever they want, even if your input is the exact opposite to another option. It's not really about choice, but the illusion of choice, and ultimately the illusion of free will. Which I know is getting a little too deep for my Dispatch superhero game. But what I'm going to say is probably wrong. Which is why if I am put on the writing team of any of those games, I would cook. I just know I would cook. I would go crazy. I would cook some peak, because just the idea, the theory that I made in my mind, what I described so far, is already peak fiction, okay? So the idea is that the player and the fanbase have been manipulated to choose between Blonde Blazer and Invisigal, and even distrust or dislike the other, when in reality, they're both bad guys. This whole game could be about the illusion of choices, which is very meta. It's a very meta thing for a choice-based game to be like, no, your choice doesn't matter, but that's part of the narrative, and we're gonna embrace it. Now, this is probably not true, but if I made a game like this, I would do that because I think it would be kind of interesting. But that's just me. My idea comes from the various theories that, like, Blonde Blazer is the villain actually, or Invisigal is going to betray Rob. All those theories to me sound plausible enough that if either of them happened, I wouldn't be too shocked. They will both make sense to me. And again, there's hints in the game that show you or that push you to distrust or dislike one or the other. When again, in reality, they could both be bad guys. They both fall in love with the MC a little too quickly. But while we actually get to see Invisigal's genuine, because of the start of episode 4 where she has a wet dream about him, we never see anything of Blonde Blazer outside of Rob's POV. The game keeps her slightly mysterious until the episode 4 ending, if you choose her, where she reveals that she's actually not blonde and she's actually like 2 feet shorter. Up until then, you only know her superficially, despite how upfront she is. Whereas Invisigal, who has the supposed criminal background and she's supposedly always hiding herself through her invisibility and is trying to hide her real emotions, is actually ironically more open, and you know way more about her and understand her as a person and as a character way more. Which I understand. The writing is intentional, it's kind of ironic, and it's pretty good. But what I'm getting at is that we suspiciously still don't know anything about Blonde Blazer. We never leave Rob's POV with her. We never see her outside of his vision, outside of what happens with him. And that leaves her very mysterious. We generally don't know that much about her. Now, let's look on why people think either could be a villain. Vizzy is already a villain and only started working at SDN a few months before Rob, which is actually when Rob got exploded. So that's a coincidence. There's also the scene at the start of the game when Toxic seems to be talking to Rob, but as many people pointed out, it could have been him talking to Vizzy while she was invisible and you just couldn't see her. And she's the one that planted the bomb on Robert's Mecha Man suit. That would also make sense because how come he never picked up on it, or how come the suit never picked up on it until after he already started flying? And it would also make sense for Toxic to talk to her while she's invisible and call her babe, even though calling Robert babe also makes sense. Also, if you think about all the places she's been when she's invisible, there's a pattern. She was in the conference room, in the room with Blonde Blazer and Rob were talking, and in the room where Rob was testing the mech. All points of interest for someone who wants to know info that Shroud would need. BB is more subtle, but she recruits Rob, which could be for SDN or herself to get closer to the reactor that he has. She also flirts with Rob before breaking up with Phenomena Man. At first I thought he'd be like Omni-Man or Homelander and force her in a relationship against her will or something that would make her being attracted to a guy who's a real hero make more sense. A guy who doesn't have any superpowers but actually tries to save people versus her boyfriend who's a terrible hero even though he has superpowers. That would kinda also justify flirting if she truly was in an abusive relationship. She would flirt with someone else to feel herself like she's in a real relationship while being abused by her real boyfriend. But it turns out that he's not some evil, abusive, weird, like, rapist. He's just an autistic alien that she easily breaks up with, and without major consequences so far. Even when you tell him you kissed BB, he just wants to understand why, instead of splattering you all over the parking lot. She also conveniently saves you at the exact time you need her, and then she gets you drunk and starts flirting with you. To me, it seems highly manipulative to go to a broken man who just, broke his arm, woke up from a coma, save him from some guys jumping him, then getting him drunk, flirting with him so he could join your hero association where you are going to be his boss. The power dynamic is kind of crazy if you think about it. Not only that, but it just feels very manipulative, just in general. Imagine, I don't know, a Phenomenon Man, I always messed up his name. Imagine if he went to recruit Invisigal and he was like saving her from getting her ass beat, then getting her drunk, then flirting with her, and then it's like, but now you want to join my job where I'm your boss? Like, that would be very weird, right? People don't really realize this about Blonde Blazer because she's hot and most people are horny, but if you think about it with a clear head, it's kind of weird. Now, how do we connect both of those together so it makes sense? Well, think about it. They're both your love interests. So by virtue of trying to be with you or giving you a choice of choosing one or the other, they're kind of connected, either as rivals or something more. But the first time we hear about Invisigal is from the Blonde Blazer. And the first time we see Invisigal is in the room with Blonde Blazer. Is that a coincidence? Probably not. Actually, the Blonde Blazer says that Invisigal is actually rubbing off on her. Well, why would they be close at all? They don't even really work together if you think about it. When have they worked together? She's not a dispatcher. She doesn't really deal with them. She barely even interacted with her because they had a group meeting because Robert asked for it. Otherwise, those two characters shouldn't really normally interact nowhere near enough so that she robs on her. Wait, she robs on her? That's kind of funny. Get it? Because Rob is the main character. Never mind, don't worry about it. Vizzy also mentioned a roommate whose favorite band is Phoenix, while looking at BB, who named their squad Phoenix. That's an interesting coincidence, okay. And Vizzy also took her rings, but how would that happen without her noticing, unless they were already familiar, if not living together maybe. And at the end of episode 3, BB says she wouldn't cut Invisigal even if she was last in the ranking. Now, that could be because it would disturb the team given they all just heard and witnessed what happened, and their morale would go down if she was cut. But think about it. Why is Blonde Blazer cutting people in the first place? Like, there's no real reason to do that. They just decided that that should happen. And Invisigal has been there for months, standing in the last place without ever being fired. Maybe it's because she knew she would never actually be cut and didn't care enough to improve. And literally everything that happened with her was set up that Robert, either falls for one or the other. And maybe the most interesting part of this whole situation is think about their relationship about a little bit. Think about their appearances. The first time we hear about Invisigal, as I already said, is from Blonde Blazer. The first time we see her is when she's in a room with Blonde Blazer. She was in a room when Blonde Blazer was putting the dress on, right? She was also the one that sent Invisigal in the mech room while Robert was testing the mech. These two have the most interactions out of anybody, and we never really question it. Like, who interacts with Blonde Blazer outside of Invisigal and Robert from this team? Like Flambe that one time, Waterboy kind of, Phenomenon if you choose him. But out of the main guys, nobody else except Flambe interacts with Blonde Blazer, but Invisigal interacts with her 3 times at the very least. 4 if you include her just mentioning her. And just a weird one I was thinking about, how come BB never hears or senses her or anything? She has every basic superpower but not vision or hearing. I guess it could just be that she doesn't have the power or ability, whatever, but like it seems highly suspicious that Invisigal will catch the Blonde Blazer lacking so many times without Blonde Blazer knowing about it. So yeah, my theory is maybe disjointed, maybe not put the best way, but like the more I think about it, the more it makes sense that this game gave you fake choices. It gave you the illusion of choice. It's the meme, the illusion of choice meme. It's where you think, oh, she might be bad, so I'm choosing her, and she might be bad, so I'm choosing her. Oh, she's good, maybe she's hot, maybe she's attractive, maybe she's a good person, maybe she's a good person. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, they probably work together. They might even be together. What if like Blonde Blazer and Invisigal are actually just together, and the plot twist at the end is that they're gonna start kissing each other while killing you or something? That would be too much. That'd be hilarious, but that would be too much. Maybe the plot twist of it all is that the only way to win this is being gay. You know, if Robert just turns gay, you know, this plan would not work. If he was gay, the plan would not work. Anyway, my idea is essentially that either they both work for Shroud or something, but it's very likely that they both work together to kind of catch you in a love triangle kind of thing, where whoever you chose, you're basically cooked from the start. But that's just me. It's a crackpot theory. I'm not saying this is true. I'm just saying that I thought about it and I think it makes sense, and I don't see anybody talk about it.